In the city of Taiyuan, there lived a young scholar named Wang. One morning, as he was walking through the busy marketplace, his mind was calm and his day seemed no different from any other. As he went along, he noticed a young woman traveling alone with a bundle in her arms. She looked weary and sorrowful, and amid the noise of the street, she seemed so lonely that Wang could not help stopping to look at her again. Seeing that she was young, beautiful, and all by herself, Wang was moved by both pity and attraction. He hurried after her, stopped her, and asked where she was going so early in the morning. At first, the woman said that the pain in her heart was not something a stranger could ease. But in the end, she told him, sadly, that her greedy parents had sold her as a concubine into a wealthy household, where she was constantly beaten and humiliated by the master's wife. Unable to bear it any longer, she had run away. Hearing this, Wang pitied her all the more. Since she had nowhere to go, Wang took her home and hid her for the time being in his study. Once she saw that the room was quiet and no one else was there, she begged him in a low voice not to let anyone know where she was. Wang readily agreed, and from then on he kept her hidden in secret. For several days, Wang concealed the woman in a private room, and no one in the household noticed. But before long, his wife, Madame Chun, caught sight of this beautiful stranger from a distance, and at once felt an uneasiness she could not explain. In private, Madame Chun urged her husband to send the woman away. She said the stranger's origin was unknown and that she could not possibly be anything good. But Wang had already been blinded by beauty. Not only did he refuse to listen, he even dismissed his wife's fear as jealous suspicion. One day, Wang happened to meet a wandering Taoist priest in the street. The moment the priest saw him, his face changed. He stopped Wang and said, "You are surrounded by evil vapors. Recently, you must have come into contact with something unclean." The priest questioned him again and again and warned him again and again, but Wang kept denying everything. Though he answered politely enough, he did not believe a word of it. In his mind, the woman was clearly nothing more than a beautiful, fragile girl. How could she be a monster? So he took the priest's warning for empty alarmism. Not long afterward, Wang returned to the study where he had hidden the woman. When he reached out to open the door, he found it barred from the inside. Remembering the Taoist's warning, he suddenly felt a chill run through him, and a deep uneasiness rose in his heart. Unable to get in, he grew more suspicious by the moment. At last, he climbed over the wall, stood on tiptoe, and peered through the window into the room, hardly daring to breathe. What he saw nearly frightened the soul out of him. There was no beautiful young woman inside at all. Instead, beneath the lamplight, stood a hideous demon with blue skin, fangs, and a savage face. It had spread a human skin across the bed and was delicately painting its brows, eyes, mouth, and nose with a colored brush. When the features were finished, the demon lifted the whole skin and draped it over itself as casually as someone putting on a robe. In an instant, it became once again the same lovely, delicate young woman Wang had first met. Only then did Wang fully understand that the woman he had hidden in his house was no helpless fugitive at all, but a demon wearing human skin. He was struck with sheer terror, stumbled backward from a window, and fled on all fours in panic. After crashing down from beneath the window, Wang scrambled across the courtyard and ran out of the house in a frenzy, not daring even to look back. Once outside, Wang desperately searched for the Taoist priest, fearing that if he was even a moment too late, he would lose his life. At last, out beyond the city, he found him, threw himself to the ground, and begged over and over to be saved. The Taoist said at first that the demon had only just found a suitable victim, and that he was reluctant to destroy it immediately. But seeing Wang so terrified, he finally took pity on him. He gave Wang a whisk and told him to hang it on the bedroom door. then instructed him to meet again later at the temple of the Azure Emperor. After returning home, Wang no longer dared go anywhere near the study. He moved to an inner chamber for the night and carefully hung the whisk on the bedroom door, hoping it would truly be enough to ward off the disaster hanging over him. Deep in the night, there came a faint rustling outside the room. The woman approached the bedroom door and stared fixedly at the whisk hanging there. Hatred was written all over her face. She ground her teeth, lingered for a long time, and paced back and forth, yet for the moment she still did not dare cross the threshold. But she did not give up. Before long the demon returned, cursing angrily. "Do you think a mere Taoist can frighten me? How could I spit out prey already at my lips?" Then it tore the whisk down, ripped it to pieces, smashed open the door, and charged straight inside. The demon leaped onto Wang's bed and attacked him with savage force. It split open his belly, tore out his heart, and departed. Wang died on the spot. By the time the maidservants arrived with lamps, the bed was a ruin of blood and flesh. That night Madame Chun was horrified and grief-stricken, yet she hardly even dared to cry aloud. At dawn the next morning, still forcing herself through her sorrow, she sent her younger brother Erlang to find the Taoist priest and beg him to come back and help. When the Taoist reached the area, he looked around and suddenly asked whose house stood to the south. Erlang answered that it was his own family home. The Taoist then asked whether anything strange had happened there lately. Erlang said he had been away early that morning and did not know, so he hurried back to ask. A little later he returned and said that an unfamiliar old woman had indeed come to the house that morning asking to work as a servant, and that she was still there. At once the Taoist knew he had found the demon's hiding place. They all went together to Erlang's house. Standing in the courtyard with a wooden sword in hand, the Taoist shouted sternly toward the room, ordering the creature inside to return the whisk it had destroyed. The moment his voice rang out, the disguised old woman inside was thrown into panic. As soon as the old woman heard him, her face drained of color and she rushed for the door in terror. But the moment she burst outside, the Taoist drove her to the ground with his sword. The human skin she wore split and peeled away, and the demon beneath was exposed before everyone, writhing and shrieking in its true form. The Taoist struck off the demon's head. At once its body turned into a mass of thick smoke that rolled and gathered along the ground. He uncorked his gourd and drew the demonic vapor inside with a rushing pull, then rolled up the discarded human skin like a scroll and put that away as well. Only then was the haunting truly ended. Although the matter was settled, the Taoist prepared to leave. Madame Chun quickly knelt before him, blocking his path, and tearfully begged him to find some way to bring Wang back to life. The Taoist thought for a long while and finally admitted that his powers were too limited. He had no art that could restore the dead. Seeing that Madame Chun was heartbroken and unwilling to rise, the Taoist at last pointed her toward one final hope. He told her that in the marketplace there was a mad beggar who often slept among filth and refuse. If she could truly cast aside her shame and beg with complete sincerity, that man might perhaps agree to save Wang's life. Madame Chun went to the marketplace, and there, among dirt and foul refuse, she found the mad beggar. He was covered in grime, foul-smelling, and so filthy that everyone else held their noses and kept away. Yet Madame Chun endured the stench, knelt before him, and tearfully told him the whole story of her husband's death. At first the beggar burst into laughter and mocked her, saying that there were countless men in the world, so why insist on saving this one? Then he struck at her with his staff in the street, humiliating her to test her resolve. At last he spat out a lump of phlegm, held it out to her, and ordered her to swallow it on the spot. To save her husband, Madame Chun had no choice. In full view of everyone around her, flushed with shame and nearly choking, she forced herself to swallow it. The mad beggar laughed loudly and strode away. Madame Chun pursued him all the way to a temple, but she could no longer find any trace of him. Full of shame and sorrow, she returned home. The family dared not go near Wang's bloody corpse, so she alone went forward to gather and arrange his exposed organs and ruined body, weeping all the while until her chest heaved and she nearly vomited. At the height of her grief, she suddenly felt the thing lodged within her chest surge violently upward. Before she could even turn her head, it dropped straight into Wang's open body. Looking closely, she saw that it was a fresh, beating human heart, still warm, as though life itself had returned to him in that instant. Madame Chun was overcome with shock and joy. At once she pressed Wang's wound, closed with both hands, and bound it tightly with strips of cloth, not daring to relax for even a moment. By midnight, she could feel warmth returning to his body, and she could hear the faint stir of breath. By the next day, Wang truly came back to life, as though he had only awakened from a long and terrible dream. At the end of the story, the narrator offers a bitter reflection. People in this world often mistake demons and monsters for peerless beauties, while treating honest warnings as absurd nonsense. Because Wang indulged a single moment of lust and refused to awaken from it, Madame Chun had to swallow humiliation, endure suffering, and drag him back from the very gate of death. It is a deeply lamentable tale,